Hello everyone, welcome back. This is the 5th episode now of the Calm Space videos that I've been making. As some of you who've been watching the videos will know, they're really just some short practices that you can use if you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or a bit wobbly during the times that we have at the moment when services aren't open in the same way as they usually are. So most of you know by now that I'm Abby. I'm a recovery worker at Preston Park Recovery Centre. And for this episode of Calm Space, I wanted to look at the theme of kindness. So some of you might know that it's Mental Health Awareness Week, the week beginning the 18th of May. And they've chosen the theme of kindness for this week, particularly because of the COVID virus and because they really recognise that at the moment kindness is such an important quality. So both for ourselves, so that we can be kind towards ourselves and better support ourselves during these difficult times, and also for our communities, that we're kind to one another so that we can be there for each other. Because we're all in the same boat with this virus. We're all having restrictions on our lives, finding it difficult in a range of ways. So this sense of real kindness and care being a really important thing that we would like to cultivate at the moment. And certainly for me, in my own journey with recovery around mental health, kindness, particularly towards myself, has been like one of the most important foundation blocks. This capacity to be my own friend, which sounds a really simple thing, but actually a lot of us don't know how to do that. When we go through difficult times, we tend to criticize ourselves, to judge ourselves, to expect ourselves to reach certain standards. I'm sure some of this is familiar to some of you. And what I've learned over time, and I'm still very much on that journey, is a way to just really be there for myself, to be a supportive presence, to talk to myself in an encouraging way rather than a critical way. So I wanted to explore a little bit some practices that can help us cultivate that sense of being our own friend. And as I always say, really just to do whatever feels helpful for you, really trusting your own sense of what's right for you. If you need to leave out a particular practice or adapt it, then really feel very welcome to do that. One of the things that can be really helpful, particularly when at the moment maybe we don't have very much contact with other people, we can't hug our friends in the same way as we used to, is to touch ourselves, a soothing touch. This might sound a bit strange at first, but maybe give it a try. It's something that I've found very helpful. And what the research shows is that if we are to touch ourselves in particular ways, it can release something called oxytocin, which is also known as the kind of the love hormone. So it's what helps us to feel bonded to other people, to have positive emotions like care and kindness. And physical touch can really release oxytocin. So one of the things that we can do is to hug ourselves. So one way that I do this sometimes is by placing one of my hands onto my shoulder, the opposite shoulder. And that in itself can feel supportive. You know, sometimes you might just put your hand on someone's shoulder to show them that you support them and that you're there. So just placing a hand on our shoulder first of all. Just feeling the weight of our hand and the warmth of it. And then if you like, with your other hand, you can tuck it under the opposite armpit. And then just feeling that sense of hugging ourselves, of holding ourselves. See how that feels in your body. And you might not feel very much, and it might feel a bit strange, and don't worry if that's the case. Just give it a try. So just letting ourselves gently breathe and feeling the contact between our hands and our bodies. So that's one thing that we can try. Another one is to place our hand onto the region of our heart. So I don't mean like the physical beating heart, more like our emotional center in the middle of our chest. So yeah, placing your hand there, and sometimes it's nice just to make a little circle with your palms just to really contact that area. Just gently. And seeing if you just feel the warmth of the palm of your hand trickling down into the area of the heart. It's like a gesture of kindness towards ourselves. If it feels helpful, we can use some words. It might not feel right for you, but I might say something to myself like, "It's okay, Abby, it's going to be okay." Or, "I can see this is a bit difficult for you right now, Abby. I'm still here for you." Okay. And one other thing that we can try is to place a hand on our face. So just gently cradling the face in our hand. So if any one of those three things felt helpful to you, calming and soothing, then maybe give them a try during the day when you're feeling upset or a bit tired, or just any time really that you feel like giving yourself some kindness. So the next practice I wanted to share is to do with the breath. So we've used the breath a little bit in previous practices, and we've talked about how slowing down the breath can be very calming. And I think in the past we've used the finger breath, and I wanted just to introduce a slightly different practice around the breath, which I call the flower breath. So we're right in the middle of spring at the moment, so there's flowers everywhere, as I'm sure you've been noticing, and they're all kind of coming into blooming at the moment, particularly things like blossom on cherry trees. So I'd like you to imagine that your hand is in a gentle fist shape, and that's almost like the bud of the flower, so before it's bloomed. And then gently unfurling the fingers as if the flower is unfurling its petals. And what we can do is to coordinate that with the breath. So as we breathe in, we have the shape of the bud. As we breathe out, slowly uncurling the fingers of the flower. And we can do that a few times. So breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And I really encourage you to find the rhythm that works for you. So you might want to do it a little bit more slowly or a little bit faster. But I would encourage you just to slow your breath down more than you normally would breathe, just because that can be so calming. So breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and and breathing out. Okay, something else to try. The last practice I wanted to mention is poetry. So I know a lot of you that I speak to find poetry really helpful. And for me, I find it speaks to my heart, to my feelings in a way that a lot of other things don't. Something about the way the language is used helps me to have a kind of deeper sense of what life is about, what's important, what is the beautiful things about life. And sometimes that can be difficult for us to see, and the poetry can kind of be like a key that can unlock that for us. And the poem that I wanted to read is by someone called Galway Kinnell, and I first heard this poem when I was on a meditation retreat that was all about being kind towards ourselves. So it's got some very positive memories for me, and I know that I've spoken to other people that also really appreciate this poem. So I wanted to read it. The bud stands for all things, even those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely. Until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. So I just read that one more time. The bud stands for all things, even those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it's necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely. Until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. Okay, so just to recap then. So we had the practices of self-touch, so putting our hand on our heart, giving ourselves a hug, placing a hand on our cheek. We had the flower breath practice and a poem. And it might mean that poem didn't really work for you, but there might be other poems that do really speak to you. So just to encourage you to find those and read them to yourself, if that's something that feels helpful. And wishing you all much kindness towards yourself and one another during Mental Health Awareness Week and for all the other weeks of the year. And look forward to seeing you for the next episode. Bye now.